What's up everybody, Arthur here, back with some more 3DS games for you all. This time, I'll be highlighting the physically expensive 3DS games that only for the next few weeks you can still get digitally to save a lot of money. And listen, I know what some viewers are gonna say to this, cause this type of comment always pops up when I talk about games prices. Of course that we can all spend $0 by emulating or jailbreaking. And there is a strong case to be made there, considering that Nintendo is not doing much of a good job in preserving the games we're talking about here, and no one else can do it legally for them, that many of these games are overpriced even digitally, that in a majority of cases they refuse to drop the prices even when the game is old. So yeah, I can definitely see emulation or modding the 3DS having their own justification, but there is also a strong case to be made for purchasing the games. Point 1, compensating the people who are involved in creating the games. I'm always happy to do that because I know the money they get is partially going towards making more games. That's money well spent in my book. Point 2, modding a 3DS in most cases is a one-way street. You can undo it, but it's much harder than jailbreaking the system because simply factory resetting it doesn't remove the pirate software completely, which ties to point number 3. Modded systems tend to break earlier than they should. All 3 of my modded video games are dead. It makes sense, right? Forcing a system to run software or hardware it wasn't made to run likely makes it break sooner. And last but definitely not least, point number 4. Properly paying for something to the people who made it is the correct and moral thing to do, which cannot be overstated. So both sides have their merit, so you know, you do you, no hard feelings. I'm hoping that this list can be both informative for those who want to make purchases decisions, as well as interesting for anyone, even those not looking to spend anything, to simply know about the exorbitant prices, cause that's always entertaining, and to learn about the games maybe too. Even if you're watching this after the eShops close, it will also serve as a list of expensive 3DS physical games, so I'll probably change the title and thumbnail after the eShops close. Just wanna be transparent about that. So alright, that's enough talking, let's get to the games. Welcome to the channel, this is From the Void. First up on the list is Ever Oasis. This is a Nintendo published game, I think most people don't realize that, and it was made by developer studio Grezzo, also responsible for the Alliance Alive and The Legend of Legacy, which are all great RPGs. Ever Oasis though is an action RPG where you build a party of 3 characters in order to tackle missions and dungeons for the ultimate goal of rebuilding an oasis. It soon becomes a deeply engaging game and it has gotten a lot of fans because of how well made it is. The physical has recently surpassed the digital, whereas per price charting it is going for $50, while digitals are $39.99. Only a $10 discount on average here, not too impressive. Meanwhile, if you're in Europe, there isn't much of an incentive to grab this one digitally. Next is the black sheep of the Metroid franchise by far, Metroid Prime Federation Force. Okay, this game is definitely not even close to as bad as its reputation. Most of the many problems people had can be removed or mitigated depending on what type of player you are. And let me be clear about that, this will not appeal to everyone, but there is a lot to enjoy depending on your preferences in gaming. It was tailor-made for a multiplayer experience, so if you attempt to play it single player, you'll notice a tall challenge. Not impossible, but demanding, and one that can be totally appreciated if you're up to the task. And of course, you can still play it on multiplayer, local or online, but online is probably gonna be a challenge. There doesn't seem to be a lot of people playing it. Next problem people had was with the controls. There are 2 types, one using the gyroscope and another if you have a Circle Pad Pro or the C-Stick with a new model. I think the new model is better because it also makes good use of the ZR and ZL buttons for secondary weapons and the lock-on feature, which felt great in my opinion. That's my preferred method for sure. Gyroscope also worked fine for me though. So though I agree neither of the control schemes are ideal or easy to grasp, both can become enjoyable if, again, you're up to the task. Next problem is the only one I agree with. The graphical style is unappealing, especially with the chibi characters with zero personality, but that's secondary to me, so once again it depends on your personal preferences. And everything else is pretty great. Most agreed that the gameplay is solid if you manage to learn the controls, the game is fun, the story is okay, so yeah, this is not a bad game, and I think people are realizing that because the game has been rising in price recently. It's going for $52 for a US copy, while digital copies go for $39.99. Yeah, in both cases the game is overpriced, I agree. The $21 for a physical in Europe is a bit closer to a fair price, so grab a physical if you're there. Next is another black sheep, Mario & Luigi Paper Jam. This is the only Mario & Luigi game I haven't played yet. I plan to though for sure, cause this seems to be another one that gets an unwarranted bad reputation. Some reviewers gave it 8s, Metacritic score for it is currently 76, not too bad at all, but I can't speak for myself on this one, so I'll just relay what critics have said. Apparently the game counts with great new mechanisms for the battle system, it has a good length and humor, but falls short on the story side and overall graphic design, and especially with the quests that feel repetitive. I think it's probably a worthwhile title for big fans of the series that are not easily offended with some letdowns in some aspects and can appreciate what good the game has to offer, which seems to be plenty, considering that the battle is the major highlight, which everyone seems to agree. Apparently people are realizing this more and more since the physical price has never been this high for $59, while digital copies go for $39.99. Once again, both are expensive. In Europe, where the game goes by the name Mario & Luigi Paper Jam Bros, people may be luckier to be able to possibly find this for less than $20 physically, so never mind the digitals if you're there. Next are the two Persona games. I've talked about these games so many times at this point that I am now bored with myself, so I'll fast forward this.
These are basically the same gameplay as found in the Etrian Odyssey games, made by the same developers, but with way more story and character development. They cross over characters from several of the mainline titles, Personas 3, 4, and 5, so this is great for fans of the series.
And they are both kind of expensive now, physically. Q1 is about $40 on both regions, while digitals go for $20, so a good $20 difference there, and Q2 is $61 physically versus $39.99 digitally, another $20 difference. Next is the great level 5 game Fantasy Life. This is a fantastic mix of action RPG with life sim, providing an addictive gameplay loop and awesome sense of exploration. Plus the production value here is through the roof, true to level 5's pedigree. Great developers that I was happy to see finally making a comeback with the new Professor Layton announcement recently. There is a pretty important DLC here too, unlocking Origin Island, which is the post-game content and a real meaningful one. Check out the DLC video I made, link in the corner there, and if you go for the digital you can save $23 here on average, cause this game has been getting expensive, surpassing the $60 mark. Moving on to another Mario & Luigi game, this is Bowser's Inside Story plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey. Such a mouthful title. This is definitely one of the best entries in the series. I do prefer the pixel art from the originals compared to the 3D washed down, more generic art style of the remakes. But other than that, this is a great game. It is as funny as ever. The gameplay balance is so very interesting with how you go back and forth between controlling Bowser or Mario and Luigi. Battles are challenging and loads of fun. This is excellent. Plus the Bowser Jr.'s Journey is probably much better than you think, again with a funny story and bringing back the strategy gameplay just as a previous remake, Superstar Saga plus Bowser's Jr., and this is a pretty cool side game. You'll be surprised if you haven't played it yet. Physicals of this game climbed to over $60 recently, surpassing the also expensive digitals, going for $39.99, which is also the same price of the European physical in average. The only Monster Hunter game that is worth getting digitally if you want to save some money is Monster Hunter Stories. The Stories spin-off brings a rather different gameplay. It's actually a turn-based combat where you can use the monsters you hatch and befriend on your side. It's a pretty cool and fresh take on the Monster Hunter series, and one that they made great use of with more of a story focus and beautiful, more cartoonish and colorful graphics. That's not to say it departs completely from the mainline titles. There is a heavy focus on the weapons you can choose, and you will find many of the classic monsters from the previous titles. Excellent game, Monster Hunter Stories, very worth playing. There are plenty of DLCs for this one too. Check out both DLC videos I made, because there is so much stuff that I only found out about some of it later and had to cover this game's DLC twice. Physicals are getting expensive for $65 US or $48 for the PAL version, so you may want to consider the digital for still expensive $39.99. This next one shot up in price all of a sudden in the last few weeks. Mario Golf World Tour. Yeah, no one saw this coming, because despite being a great Mario Golf game, this one is pretty common. And it's a really great game. It's lengthy and packed full of different content and mechanics for the actual golfing. One of the best games in the series that I think a lot of people don't realize. I believe this game fell into forgetfulness for some reason, so you may want to consider saving over $30 potentially by grabbing the digital for $29.99 instead of the physicals that surpassed $60 recently. And do it fast, because there is also DLC for this one, adding new courses and characters. Another one no one saw coming in terms of increased prices is Pokemon Art Academy. There is no better way to learn how to draw Pokemon while also learning some pretty interesting drawing techniques than this game. This is really well made with lots of production value. I really enjoyed it. I played it the whole way through. But of course, this is aimed at a much more niche audience, which makes the rising price all the more surprising. It's gone upwards of $60, while digital copies are $29.99. Once again, Europe is in the opposite situation, as digitals are more expensive there. Next, we have one that released very recently, Go-Go Kokopolo 3D Space Recipe for Disaster. Of course, this is no surprise, as the physicals for this game were made in very limited quantity by limited run, aimed at collectors. But this is a good opportunity for me to highlight this very fun game with the unique gameplay of scratching past enemies and feeding them to the carnivorous plant. It's a very quirky and humble game, but definitely enjoyable. Physicals come in 3 versions, 2 of them also containing the previous game in the series that does not have a digital version, by the way, but standalone and complete in box it's currently going for $40, while digitals would be $6 normally, but there is a sale happening ending in the very last day of the eShop's closing, dropping the price to $239 in the US or mere $139 in Europe. So yeah, just pick this one up please. This is definitely worth the discounted price. Physicals are only North American, by the way, and these 2 games were the actual last physical games released officially on the 3DS. I think most people have not caught up to all this, so I believe these physicals may rise in price a lot as time goes on. Next is Stella Glow. This is such a great tactical RPG, I've said it so many times at this point. Just make sure to grab it if you're at all into strategy RPGs, because this has some of the best gameplays in the genre hands down. That's all I'm gonna say about it this time. Physicals are expensive on both regions, approaching $60, while digitals are $19.99 in the Americas, which is a fair price, and $39.99 in Europe, which is quite a discrepancy there. This is probably because the game was published by different companies in each region. Next is Senran Kagura 2. This is a hack and slash beat 'em up kind of game that counts with a lot of overtly sexual content to the point of feeling in poor taste for most people, I think. I have never played this one or the predecessor Burst that also is on the 3DS but digital only, but from what I can tell from the reviews, the gameplay can be enjoyed for a hack and slash fan, but if you only like these kinds of games when they're great, I think Senran Kagura 2 will feel too repetitive and lacking in creativity. Standard copies of this game go for over $60 in the US and over 200 in Europe. Wow. Meanwhile, digitals go for $29.99, so you can save a lot of money, especially if you're in Europe. Next is Fragrant Story. This is the third to last title to be released physically for the 3DS. It's a tactical RPG, however, and a major however here, the game is ridiculously short. Here it's less than 15 minutes. That's shorter than most tutorials of strategy RPGs. What the hell? However, once again, the developer is about to release update version 1.2, which will include a free DLC expanding the game. By how much? I have no idea, but this could have been the strategy all along, just to be able to release the game before the physical cutoff and then release the rest of it through the free update. So yeah, maybe wait on the update, which I plan on covering soon, then make your decision whether to get it or not for the not expensive price of $4. Next, I'll place together all the Shin Megami Tensei non-Persona games. I covered those a lot as well, so I'll be brief. The best one of them, in my opinion, is Strange Journey Redux, which is a pretty cool first-person dungeon crawler with lots of horror elements, fantastic story, and great progression and combat design. Excellent game. And it's the most expensive of them digitally in the Americas, going for $39.99, which still beats the physical going for $65. However, in Europe, things are very different. The digital is less expensive at $29.99, while physicals are ridiculously up there at over 150 euros. I guess this one had a small print run over there or something. Then next are Shin Megami Tensei 4 and 4 Apocalypse. Both are excellent. Apocalypse is kind of a sequel. Both have a mesmerizing story and setting, kind of a mix of feudal and futuristic. It's very interesting. They're also the richest in terms of production value out of all of these, with navigation in third person. It looks rather impressive on a 3DS. And 4 Apocalypse story takes place concurrently to the end of the story in 4 with the new protagonist, so you gotta play 4 first. 4 is going for $50 in the US, while Apocalypse surpasses the $60 mark. While in Europe there is no physical version of 4, while Apocalypse is very expensive at over 130, so in Europe digitals are mandatory, or practically so. Moving on to the 2 Devil Survivor remakes, Overclocked and 2 Record Breaker. These are a fine change of pace for the Megami Tensei series, as they mix in quite an interesting way, strategy grid-based RPG for the positioning and traditional turn-based RPG for the actual combat, but with limited rounds. I really like the look and feel of the battles in these 2 games. The stories are also great, and both add new story segments compared to their vanilla DS versions. Excellent tactical RPGs, both of them. They're going for $60 in the US, while Overclocked is over 150 in Europe, but Record Breaker is 46 over there. Digitals are more expensive in Europe too, prices are all over the place there, but in all cases you can save a good amount going digital. Then last is Devil Summoner Soul Hackers. This is the only version of this Sega Saturn original that made it to the West. It has a typical SMT gameplay with dungeon crawling, demon recruiting, but because this is an older game, it has less quality of life improvements, but still a great title. In the US, Soul Hackers is $19.99 digitally, while physicals go for $60 on average as per price charting. In Europe though, the digital is only $9.99, quite a bargain. Next we have Lord of Magna, Maiden Heaven. This This is a strategy RPG with a unique style of gameplay where hitting enemies knocks them back to hit more enemies behind them. Doing that correctly grants you an extra turn. This is pretty cool, with all attacks having an area of effect, which I always enjoy. The pacing of the story is sluggish though, conversations take too long, but the story itself is enjoyable. However, it also features a light and well-handled dating sim aspect to the game that may be a turn-off anyways. This one is available physically only in the Americas, not for PAL regions, and prices are over $60 right now, even more expensive than the last time I talked about it, so digitals for $19.99 are more attractive. Following up with Radiant Historia, Perfect Chronology. This gets my highest recommendation. It's a remake of an already excellent DS exclusive turn-based RPG, adding a lot of stuff. So if you haven't played the original, go straight for this one, as it offers improved graphics, new music tracks, an even better battle system, difficulty options, and most notably a third timeline, as this game is all about time travel. Plus the battle system is fantastic, where you can push and pull enemies in the grid so they occupy the same square, and then you dish out a powerful attack there and hit all of them. It's awesome. And very challenging too. Fantastic RPG right here. The physical version is going for over $80, so if you want it at a discount, go for the digital for half that price. In Europe, the discrepancy is much bigger, with physicals approaching crazy €200 and digitals are less expensive compared to the US, going for $29.99. Next is Kid Icarus Uprising. This is truly an epic game, all kinds of cinematic and entertaining. It contains a lot of humor too, which I didn't realize it had before playing it. The action here is excellent as well, dividing the gameplay into on-rail air battles and free-roaming land battles, which are both fantastic in my opinion. Uprising was for a long time among the cheaper first-party titles in physical form, but now as we approach the store's closing, it is ramping up, with standard copies surpassing $70 and big box copies with the stand and the AR cards going for over $100 in the US, while Europe prices are also up but not as dramatically. Next, I'm grouping out the Etrian Odyssey games, starting with the Untold titles, which are reimaginings of the two original DS Etrian Odysseys, but now with fleshed out characters and story. Both are over $60 in the US, while one is a bit less expensive in Europe, where it also goes for only $9.99 digitally, quite a bargain. 2 is much more expensive over there, God knows why. Then Etrian Odyssey 4, 5 and Nexus, which could just as well have been called 6. These are all excellent, not much to say about them, it's just more challenging, awesome dungeon crawling, each with more crazy and unique job classes for your characters than the previous one. They're all crazy expensive. I'm just gonna take the whole screen here, by the way. And in Europe, 5 takes the cake at $190 and Nexus is also exorbitantly expensive at $117. In any case scenario, you can save a lot of money going with the digitals here. Next, both Dragon Quest games on the 3DS. These are remakes of PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games respectively, and really well made remakes, adding a lot of extras including new characters and stories, so even if you already played the originals, there is a good incentive to revisit and experience the new stuff. They are very different games by the way. 7 has a weird pacing, it divides itself in many small stories that are seemingly not interconnected, while the overarching narrative takes a long time to develop, so this game is not for everyone, but if you like like a slow burn and are a patient player, this will probably provide a huge payoff in the end. It certainly did for me. Not the best Dragon Quest by any means, but a great one for sure. 8, however, needs no explanation. This is definitely among the best Dragon Quest games, and for many, it's number 1. Fantastic game made even better on the 3DS in most aspects. It is also the more expensive of the two physically, going for over 100 bucks, and 7 is not too far away. Digitals are expensive, but much less so. In Europe, you're probably better off with a physical, however. Next is Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn. This one I don't have, but I've played the original on the Wii all the way through and it's excellent. So with even more interesting stuff, including a hard mode, which sounds great for a Kirby game, this is a great grab if you haven't played it yet. Problem is that the physicals are surpassing 100 bucks in the US, while digitals also feel very overpriced for an enhanced port of sorts. Next up is Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. This entry in the series still carries the very enjoyable pixel art, which I prefer, and it's a fantastic side-scroller action platformer. But this one has so many other versions, each only having minor differences between them, that I think only collectors are looking for the 3DS physicals. The game is everywhere: Switch, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Wii U, Xbox, all over. So if you're not a physical collector and are decided in having the Pirate's Curse on the 3DS, the digitals will save you almost 90 bucks in the US or almost 140 in Europe. Moving on to Corpse Party Back to School Edition. This one I own, but I have not played yet. Normally I would to feature in the video, but time is of the essence now, so I didn't. The game was received very positively, lots of 8s and 8.5s, and it's an adventure horror kind of game with focuses on puzzle solving and story that received high praise, which is great. This is a remaster of a PSP game, by the way, adding 4 new chapters, so this is the best version for sure. Prices are really up there, probably because this game only received a collector's edition, no standard edition in the US. While Europe didn't even get that. In the US it's going for well over 100 bucks, so you can save a lot of money by picking it digitally. Then we have the Professor Layton games. Those are really excellent puzzle/adventure games. If you're at all into those, do yourself a favor and play these for sure. Note that the Miracle Mask and Azran Legacy are respectively number 2 and 3 in the prequel trilogy, so you may want to grab the Last Spectre DS game first. But anyway, these are fantastic, including the spin-off Professor Layton vs Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney that mixes the gameplay from both series in a great way. Now, Azran Legacy in particular is experiencing the sharpest increase in price of any other 3DS game I know of. Look at the tail end of the curve there. That's an 87-degree angle right there. And it was already expensive to begin with. That's ludicrous. I don't think this game is rare at all. I often see a lot of copies being sold at once online, so I really don't understand what's going on here, but it is what it is. 174 bucks is what Azran Legacy is going for. Versus Phoenix Wright is also really up there for almost 150, while Miracle Mask sits at close to 60. Meanwhile, in Europe, things are much less drastic, and Miracle Mask is being given away with any cup of coffee, apparently. Digitals are all overpriced in my opinion, but much less so than the physicals. And by the way, Catriel and the Millionaire's Conspiracy is not available digitally. Next is one that I'm sure any of you already predicted: Rhythm Thief and the Emperor's Treasure. I think this is a fantastic rhythm game. Presentation is 10 out of 10. The rhythm sections are varied and loads of fun with the stylus. The game oozes charm from all sides. It's great. Sega really needs to make a sequel out of this one, or a port, because it's going for over 220 bucks physically, which is insane. You can check in my first video on this series less than a year ago, it was going for 110 bucks, also according to price charting, so it has doubled an already insanely expensive price in less than a year. Meanwhile, Europeans are not experiencing any of this drama, which is great because over there the digitals are ridiculously overpriced at $44.99. Another very predictable series to feature on this list is Yokai Watch. These have been crazy expensive for a while. I've only recently started playing those, so I don't have a well-constructed opinion yet, other than trusting the reviews, fans, and pedigree of level 5 that all indicate that these are mighty fine RPGs with a lot of charm. And in many of these cases here, I had to opt for the digitals because the physical prices are truly prohibitive for most of them. In the US, the third version of Yokai Watch 2, which is much like a Pokemon Crystal or Emerald version called Yokai Watch 2 Psychic Specters, is the only one of them that is crazy expensive for 130 bucks. Then Yokai Watch 3 surpasses the $200 mark, currently at $227, but the Blasters games, which are spin-offs that I know little to nothing about, really take the cake here. White Dog Squad is going for 250 bucks, while Red Cat Corps surpasses the amazing $300 mark, currently going for 320 bucks. All of them are much less expensive in Europe, while in digital form any of them go for $39.99, which is a quite spicy price as well. It is tough to be a new Yokai Watch fan, I'll tell you that. Finally, the most expensive game in physical form that you can also find in the eShop is, as per usual, some weird thing that most people are not going to care about, but this is definitely very curious, full of interesting details. Guide Louvre. How do you say this?
Louvre.
There you go. So this is not a game at all. It is, as the game says, a guide to the famous French
Louvre
museum that you can use to either find your way when visiting the museum or to visit it virtually without leaving the comfort of your home, with loads of explanations about each piece of art found there. This is a real weird piece of software that made itself to the 3DS, seriously. Who had this idea and convinced Nintendo to publish it? I mean, what? Now, one interesting thing about this is that the physical version is region-free. Yeah, the only 3DS physical cartridge that is region-free is this, Guide
Louvre.
Thanks, Nintendo. Now, here's something really wild about Guide
Louvre.
There are 5 different physical versions of this game. Yeah, 5. Each with a different language for the voiceover, except one. English, Spanish, French, and 2 different versions for the Japanese language. In the physicals, for the most part, you can spot it quickly by looking at the top right corner where you can find a flag of the UK, Spain, France, or Japan. This is really important if you're looking to buy the game physically, because the prices vary wildly between each version. The English version is really expensive, going for crazy 342 bucks as per price charting. A Spanish version is not even close, but still expensive at 68 bucks, while a French version is cheaper for 39. But the Japanese versions are on a whole new level. Like I said, there are 2 different Japanese versions, both with nauseating prices. These here are the eBay offers as of March 2023, so I'm sure the numbers will fluctuate a lot, and these prices are probably completely different inside Japan, so take this with a huge grain of salt, alright? This is all just for curiosity anyway. Okay, the first version is a Japanese Zero variant, which I'm pretty sure only works in a Japanese 3DS. You can see the Zero logo in the bottom left corner and no flag in the top right corner. This version is more common, but still goes for ridiculous $1,327. But the other version is the region-free Japanese version, that doesn't have the Zero logo indicating its region freedom and has the Japanese flag on the top. These were sold only for a couple of months in one specific location in Japan, some museum there I think. So this is truly rare, and the only offer that I could find online right now goes for a staggering $3,500 and some change. Just madness. So yeah, be careful when buying or selling this game, because I'm pretty sure some collectors may find a French or Spanish version for a not so expensive price and think they struck gold and end up overpaying by a lot, or getting rid of a Japanese version for the English price and losing thousands. Meanwhile, any of the digital versions go for $19.99. So if you want to have this guide for its actual purpose, you can save hundreds of dollars for an English version. Of course, most people looking for this just want to have it in a collection and practically never use it. I mean, who are we kidding here? That's just the way the cookie crumbles. And that's it, everybody. Hope this helps you all in making your purchase decisions. Stay tuned, as soon I'll do something similar for the Wii U. Then I'll move on to a list of games released recently, meaning in the last few years on the Wii U and 3DS. There will definitely be a few surprises there, so don't miss that one. And after that, I still have a few topics I want to tackle. I've also been doing a daily countdown on Twitter for the eShop's closing, where I highlight a bunch of games worth getting, some that I haven't even covered in a video yet. So follow me on Twitter too to get those suggestions, as well as any sales that take place on the eShop, which I also do a shout out over there. Do check out the eShop closing coverage series if you haven't yet. Thank you so much to all of you who have been supporting my work on Patreon. You are the best. If you also want to join in, I invite you to check out the Patreon page. Any amount you can share is much appreciated in my mission of shedding light into obscure games. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.